Hello, souls and demons, and welcome back to the show. Today is part 4 of I Found My Likeness in a Torture Game, written by Cecily 1987. And with that, let's get started. Sit back, grip your seats, and enjoy. I sat on my couch in my living room for what seemed like the next couple of hours. In some ways it felt like weeks, in others it felt like only seconds. But being cooperative with the police, along with being a pretty big celebrity, got me a measure of privacy not afforded to most people. And this was one of the few times I was glad to cash in my privilege tokens. I should have felt bad. I should have felt scared. But all I really felt was empty. My employees, my friends, the betrayal of one, another fighting for his life in the hospital. I remembered how cocky I had felt running off after Stutter Trooper, like I was some sort of badass from the movies I played make-believe in. I was delusional. After I had chased Stutter Trooper down the hallway, Stinton had cornered me. I did my best Jack Bauer interrogation on him, only to realize these 3 nerds knew nothing. They were being paid to kidnap me, all for the stupid voice lines to finish that stupid snuff game. Then the gunshot, the blood, the whispers. Tony held me close and dictated to me what happened, like a man confessing on his deathbed. Tony said he had cuffed the one with the pepper spray, and turned to see Mel just standing in the middle of the hallway, watching Fat Skeletor run off in the opposite direction. Tony said Mel had his damn gun out again, pointing at the back of Skeletor as he ran further and further away. Mel just watched, pointed his weapon and mumbled to himself. Tony called out to Mel, causing Mel to turn on his heel and shoot Tony point blank. Next thing Tony knew, I was next to him holding his hand while Stinton simultaneously tried to put pressure on the wound and call 911. Pepper spray guy was missing also. He must have run away during the commotion. The cops came and searched the area. Nobody was found in relation to the incident, and Tony was rushed to the hospital. Detectives took me back to my home for interviews. I considered coming clean about everything I knew, but something kept my mouth shut. I knew I was in shock, and didn't want to divulge information that may come back to bite me. So I stuck strictly to the questions I was asked and didn't volunteer anything new. I would clam up till my head was back in the right place at least. Finally, the cops got what they wanted and told me they would be in touch, and left my house around that evening. I sat in my living room, alone for the first time in hours. My phone had dozens of messages and missed calls from family, lawyers, and studio executives. My son and the nanny were sequestered away in his room already. I noticed my hands started trembling slightly, just like Mel's hands had earlier that very day. Did he feel remorse for what he was about to do? "Ma'am?" came the deep southern voice of Stinton. It always made me jump. I looked up to see him standing by the entryway. I almost forgot that he was still around. No, wait. He had disappeared for a while. "Where have you been?" I asked him, trying to throw in a small smile to not make him think I was bitching. "I figured you were safe enough while an army of cops were over here with you, so I took a little trip back to my place. I needed to get something to show you." He walked up timidly, almost shamefully, and removed a pill bottle from his pocket and put it down on the coffee table in front of me. The bottle's RX label was worn, and only had 3 tiny pills rolling inside. "What's this?" I asked. Clonopin or clonazepam, an anti-anxiety medication, Stinton replied flatly. Oh, that's sweet, Stinton, but I don't need your meds. I'm already exhausted and can get my own if I need any. No, Stinton said sharply, and then softened his tone. No, ma'am, this isn't for you. Stinton scooted around the table and sat down next to me. He opened the bottle and poured out 3 lonely pills. They were all circular and an off yellow color. I found these on the ground next to Tony, Stinton said, pointing at the RX bottle he had set down. The label says they belong to Mel. They must have fallen out during the tussle, my guess. To play devil's advocate, that's not condemning information for a man to worry about his mental health, I suggested. I know a lot of you military guys deal with a lot of stress. That being said, it's weird he just brought the bottle with him to work, I said, confused and sort of rambling. That's not it, Stinton interjected. He reached into his side pocket and dropped 3 more similar-looking pills on the table, next to the Klonopin from Mel's bottle. What, you found more? No, Stinton snorted a reply. Oh God, how do I say this? I don't care about Mel taking crazy pills. Between all the messed up shit we saw in Trashcanistan, we should be as fucked as a soup sandwich. I scrunched up my nose and squinted at Stinton's colorful language. I wasn't used to it, but it had been a long day for both of us. And at least he was being real with me, unlike others. When I got out, it took me a while to land a good job, and my girl had just lost her job just to put the shit cherry on top. She had insurance through her old job, so her medication prices skyrocketed without it. Anyway, Stinton continued more sheepishly. She said she knew a guy who could hook her up with the pills she needed, just until we got insurance again. I almost giggled at the sight of the big Boy Scout getting all flustered about knowing a drug dealer. He was acting like he was confessing to murder, but I didn't want to insult him, so I used my acting chops to keep my expression from cracking into a smile. But before my girl went off and got pills from some random dude, I did my homework and made sure she was getting the right medication. I'm a little OCD about things like that. That's how I knew these were fakes, or at least they aren't Klonopin, he said, pointing at the 3 pills he had dumped out of Mel's bottle. I went home to get some for my girlfriends to compare them against each other, but you can tell they are different if you look close. I leaned in closer. The yellow color on both sets of pills were off. The weird V mark was the same, but Mel's didn't have numbers on the back of his. They were different. What does this mean? What are they? I asked, fully turning to stare at Stinton's downcast face. I have no idea. None of this makes sense, but then again, he looked up at me sternly. You haven't told me everything. A promise was a promise, and I told him everything. Yes, I know I had just met him. Yes, I know he could be working with Mel. But I had nobody else to turn to, and my instincts told me he was a stand-up guy. I grabbed a go bag at my place when I stopped by. I'll stay the night. This situation has become incredibly dangerous, Stinton said, flustered by all the new information I gave him. I'm going to reach out to some of the guys tomorrow that were in the teams with me and Mel, Stinton continued. Maybe I can track him down before this escalates any further. I understand, I said. As angry as I was with him, he still protected me for years. I want this to end peacefully just as much as you do. Yes, ma'am. And I'm gonna look into this Harold Void guy. I don't trust him. Me neither. I agreed. I picked up the bottle and read the name. Kaha Nanui, Meldon. I had never used Mel's last name. Let me guess. The guys on the team called him Kilo, so they wouldn't have to learn how to pronounce his name correctly. I asked Stinton. Yeah. How did you know? Came Stinton's expected reply. After that, Stinton had free roam of the guest bathroom and set himself up in the living room. He was surely earning his overtime pay tonight. I went back to my room, and with an ominous feeling in my stomach, I sat down at my computer to check my email. And sure enough, I had received an email from Herald of the Void with the subject line, "My last communication." I took a deep breath and double-clicked on the email. The following is Harold's frantic message. Like the subject line says, "This will be the last time I contact you. Things are getting way out of hand. I saw what happened at the convention. The fan sites are low on details, but I know it has something to do with my client attacking you. The cops won't release a lot of details, except you are fine, no arrests were made, and somebody is in the ICU with a gunshot wound." Following these reports this afternoon, I received further instructions from the client of the torture game. He said he had real-life plans and he needed me to hurry and patch the new content into the current build of the game. The jig is up, Mrs. J. I tried to help you, and maybe I did in some way. I'm burning all these contacts and going dark for a while. You will never hear from me again. I'm erasing everything. After you play through the game again, it will delete itself from your computer. I did my fastest work ever patching in the new content. Hopefully, if you're quick enough, you can stop whatever he is planning to do. In the kill room, remove the face. The message ended with a hyperlink for the newest build of the torture game. I was confused and scared now, but it seemed the Herald of the Void was scared too. What had he seen in the game to cause such fear? Once again, the twisted game started, blacking out my screen, showing the crucified crow man, then screaming at me with my own face. I selected the kill room and let out a weary sigh as I saw my virtual body double struggling her useless struggle against the straps holding her to the table. Nothing seemed different in the room. Blacked out walls covered with shiny plastic white tiles with a floor drain. One of those dentist chair spotlights shining down on poor VBD, and medical trays filled with tools for torture. I walked over to the tray and selected the carving knife. I clicked on VBD's pleading face and selected scalp. The game gave me the option, "Are you sure?" because this would kill VBD and end the game. Yes, I said to myself with grim determination and clicked away. VBD almost blew out my speakers with her scream as the carving knife did its work, with a sickly ripping sound. The skin from her hairline was pulled off of her skull. The end result was a hairless version of myself, bloody smooth skull visible. Blood cascading down the skin still on VBD's face, as her eyes bulged with hysteria. The scalped skin and hair from the top of my head lay flopped over, covering her left ear like some sort of gruesome wig. I waited for something new to happen. I held my breath and endured the terrible screaming, but nothing happened. "You sick bastard," I cursed. How could Mel see me like this? All this time, this was his fantasy. What in this game had spooked Harold so much that he is going to ghost me? Suddenly, the audio for VBD was cut off mid-scream. VBD turned her head to face my character. Mouth glitched open in a forever scream.
"Hello, Jay. It's good to finally address you directly. now that the farce is up,"
came a muffled voice from my speakers. I leaned back in my chair and felt goosebumps all down my body.
"I know about you and Harold of the Void going behind my back, trying to find out who I am. I know you even got Daniel to play along with you two hapless detectives."
Oh God, he knew Harold was trying to help me. No wonder Harold went into hiding after hearing this message. But why was Mel still using a voice changer?
The irony of the situation is I would have been completely satisfied with just playing the game I commissioned if Harold had ever finished it. At least it would have brought you more time before I got bored with the game and came for you in real life. His and your self-righteous meddling forced my hand, moving up the timetable. But I am still a man of honor. If you give me what I want, I'll disappear. I don't need the cops on me, but if you pursue this, I'll reach out and hurt you wherever you hide.
I felt like I was going to throw up. Honor, are you kidding me? It's crazy how people twist logic to still come out the good guy in their own minds.
I will give you my demands over a burner phone. Open the vent beside the teal vase in the living room. I will call you in exactly 5 minutes. Be sure to answer, or someone you know may take your place in the kill room.
And with that, the game buzzed at me and cut back to the main menu and displayed a status bar indicating it was deleting itself. Without thinking, I jumped up from my chair and flung open my door to run to the living room. Stinton had already heard the commotion of me coming down the hallway, and he stood hyper-alert, slightly crouched, eyes scanning everything around him. "Stinton, Mel left something in the house. That vent right there. I need you to open it." Stinton was confused, but followed my orders regardless. He followed the direction of my pointing finger to the vent. He jumped over the couch to slide down beside it. He pulled out a knife and began taking the screws out. He popped it off in no time, and I was on my knees beside him staring into the dusty vent shaft. We saw it immediately. A dust-caked black smartphone. I took it out and began brushing it off. It was almost as if my touch activated, because it suddenly started ringing. "Hello? Mel?" I asked timidly into the phone.
"My demands,"
came back the augmented voice of the speakerphone.
"You come down the road to meet me. You give me what I need for the game, and I will leave your life forever."
"Screw that, you freak," I shot back. My face felt hot with anger. "You betrayed my trust and nearly killed Tony. I will give you nothing. The only thing I will negotiate is your surrender to the cops." There was a heavy sigh from the other end, then a moment of eerie silence.
"You heard my demands. Meet me down the street in 10 minutes. Be sure to watch the video I send you,"
came the deadpan voice. It was followed by a bleep, letting us know Mel had hung up. Me and Stinton only had a short time to look at each other with the same stupid expressions on our face before the text message's alarm went off on the phone. I opened the messages, hit play, and turned the phone so Stinton could watch it with me. The blurry footage started abruptly, displaying 2 street signs against a dark night sky. The street names written on the signs came into focus after a moment. It was the intersection of Houston and Costner, literally just 5 minutes up the road. The camera footage swung around to show the back of an ordinary white van that gave off major kidnapper vibes. The cameraman moved closer and threw open the double doors at the back. Inside the dark van was the figure of a hunched-over body, with duct tape over his mouth and hands restrained behind him. The van shifted and squeaked as the cameraman moved into focus on the man's face. "Oh God, it's Daniel," I screamed. "He has my nephew." Daniel's eyes were filled with terror as a heavy black boot pinned him against the floor. His eyes bulged in fear as a gleaming silver scalpel slowly lowered towards his face. The cameraman dragged the sharp knife across the top of Daniel's forehead, right under his hairline. "He's scalping him, Stinton. We have to do something," I screamed again, frantically grabbing at Stinton's shirt as he watched in horror. On the video, Daniel moaned in pain as blood flooded his face. The foot of the cameraman held him still as he tried to thrash about.
10 minutes,
came the deep voice of the kidnapper.
or I rip the top of his head off.
The video ended and I spun to face Stinton. "We have to go," I demanded. "Wait," Stinton said, trying to think of a counter-argument. "Okay, but you stay in the car and I talk with Mel." I turned to consider my son and Nanny being left at home alone. Was this a trick to lure me away from the house? No matter. I had to act fast. My nanny knew the drill. She had locked the door and was sleeping in the room with my son. She had the cops on speed dial and a nifty pink 9mm in her purse. We ran outside and piled into the company SUV. Stinton almost ran the gate down, pulling out of the property onto the well-lit streets. "When I get out, you hop over to the driver's seat. If it's a trick, you run over everything to get away," Stinton said, quickly giving me instructions as I pointed him where to go. "There is a revolver on my side on the door when I get out. It's loaded with 6 shots. My heart was skipping beats in my chest, and my stomach felt it was twisted in knots when we came closer to Houston and Costner Street. Stinton slowed down and switched off the lights to roll slowly up the street. He cracked the window a bit and shushed me, even though I hadn't said anything. We could see the white van about 50 yards out, parked under a light pole. On the ground beside the van was the crumpled up body of who I suspected was Daniel. "Stinton, Daniel's in the street," I whispered harshly and pointed. I know, he replied, annoyed. "It doesn't make any sense. Something is off. Were these streetlights always out on the road?" He pointed out the window at the surrounding darkness. Only the streetlight above Daniel was working. The sound of glass breaking and Stinton letting out a sick moan happened simultaneously. The windshield on his side fell into millions of pieces and felt what I thought was warm spit hitting the side of my face. I turned to realize the horrible truth. Stinton slumped sideways to lean on me, a gross gurgling noise coming from his lips. A massive gunshot wound had destroyed the left side of his head above the ear, and blood and brain matter flowed freely. "Stinton!" I screamed in incomprehensible panic. I shook him as his dead weight pinned me down. A red laser light bobbed up and down as I heard heavy footsteps approach me from the driver's side. I scrambled to push Stinton off of me as the gunman got closer. Hindsight 2020, Stinton probably had a gun on his person, but all I could think about was the revolver in the side door. Or maybe I should have just ran. Time slowed as I stretched and pulled my way across the seats as I saw Mel drew closer. As he got feet away, my fingers brushed the wooden handle of the gun. The passenger side door behind me was flung open, and 2 strong hands grabbed me around my waist and viciously ripped me out of the vehicle to land hard on the asphalt belly first. The last thing I saw was multiple pairs of boots standing around me before something hard landed in my back and a hood was thrown over my head, filling my soul with darkness.